Essay 3 is a critical analysis of a TV show. For this assignment, you need to pick a recent TV show. So for our purposes, that means a show that has been created and on the air within the last 5 years. Part of why I want your TV show to be recent is that we're going to be analyzing what the TV show tells us about our culture or about our society. So as interesting as a show like Seinfeld or Friends or even I Love Lucy might be, those shows reveal something about a different decade. I want a show that's contemporary, that's of the moment, that tells us something about the zeitgeist. So pick a recent TV show and you're going to write a well-developed analytical essay in which you make a debatable argument about the show or its impact on viewers. So this is not a summary paper. This is not a book report or a TV report in which you tell me just what the TV show is about. Nor is it an evaluation paper in which you evaluate if the show's a good show or a bad show, if you liked it, if you disliked it. It's an essay in which you make an argument about what the show is really about underneath the surface, or what kind of impact the show has on its viewers. Here's some advice you might find helpful. You may have to summarize a little bit to contextualize the show or to explain what the characters are doing, but you're going beyond summary. You are constructing an interpretive argument about the cultural significance of your topic and your TV show. So for example, if you were doing a recent show, one that I've been watching called Schitt's Creek, you might think about what the show is saying about our desire to see an incredibly wealthy family fall on hard times and yet still pull together and make friends and learn how to adjust in a new environment. So what is the show really saying underneath the surface? This requires that you watch the show not passed out on your couch or looking at your phone, but that you really watch the show in an active way rather than a passive way. And this might seem kind of strange in an English class, right? Writing about a TV show, not a work of literature or rhetoric, but TV shows reveal a lot about our culture, and actually there are plenty of scholars and writers who analyze TV shows and media. Emily Nussbaum from The New Yorker is one famous example of that, and she actually has a book of articles about TV or TV analysis articles. Another thing to note is that your research paper is going to be on the same topic. So you can think of Essay 3 as a graded draft, a shorter draft of your research paper. So for your research paper, you're going to be writing about the same TV show unless you really change your mind and you want to pick a different one, although I don't recommend it. But you'll be focusing on several seasons of the show or several episodes. Whereas for Essay 3, you might just focus on one specific episode or maybe a couple episodes or one specific side character. So Essay 3, you're focusing on one component of the show, and for the research paper, you're expanding it. You don't have to write about the entire series for the research paper. I've had plenty of students write really compelling research papers about just 5 episodes of the show, so I don't want you to feel, if you don't watch TV, as if you have to binge an entire series in order to write Essay 3 in the research paper. Again, for Essay 3, 1 episode would be a great scope. For the research paper, you could talk about a couple of episodes or even the whole series if you want. So think about TV shows that resonate with you or that your friends are watching or that have some buzz behind them. Pick a show that you think is interesting or problematic or disturbing. Think about what kinds of issues the show addresses. What are the hidden messages? What kinds of graphic images do you notice? Are there stereotypes that are challenged or perpetuated? Are there cultural myths or ideologies? What does the dialogue say about the characters? Which characters are mocked or the butt of jokes and which are taken seriously? And what kind of show is it? Is it a mockumentary, a sitcom? These are some questions just to get you started. You do not have to answer these questions in your essay. These are just to get you started. You are going to form your own argument about the show. These questions will just help you generate some ideas. The essay has to be 4 pages. You have to have an intro with a hook and a persuasive thesis, several body paragraphs, quotations from 3 outside sources. So 1 has to come from a journal or a book, and the other must come from the library databases. You might think that that's strange because you're writing about TV and I'm asking you to use a source, but you might think a scholarly source from a professor or a scholar or an expert on a TV show, how is that possible? Well, like I said before, there are plenty of scholars who analyze TV shows, and there are plenty of scholars who analyze media or TV in general, or themes like violence or sexuality or masculinity, whatever it is on TV shows. There are also plenty of books and ebooks about communications and media, so there's plenty that you can work with. You can also find articles about the topic that your TV show is exploring. So for example, if you were writing an essay about the TV show Stranger Things, you might find an article about that genre, or you might find an article about horror TV shows in general. So the articles that you find might not be about your specific TV show, but they might be about the issues your show is exploring. Another example, if you were doing the show Breaking Bad, although that's too old for our purposes, but just as an example, you might not find an article written by a scholar about the TV show, although it's very possible that you would find an article written by a scholar about the TV show. But you can definitely find articles about depictions of drugs on television, what kind of impact that has on viewers, right? The issues the show is exploring. Of course, you can have sources that are more informal, like magazines or newspapers, but you also have to have one source that comes from a scholarly journal, like JSTOR or Academic Search Complete, a peer-reviewed article, and then the rest have to come from the library databases. Remember, through ProQuest on the library databases, you can access major newspapers like the New York Times, the LA Times, the New Yorker, so you can use those as well for your article that comes from the library database. A thought-provoking conclusion, a works cited that includes your TV show, and of course, MLA format. I want to give you a few more tips. Remember that you want to go beyond just saying that the show has a positive or negative impact. Try to go beyond that. So here's a sample thesis. True Blood, that should actually be in italics because it's the title of the show, perpetuates the idea that sexuality and violence are linked. Therefore, the program is especially damaging to impressionable teenagers. So this thesis statement makes an argument about the show True Blood that's not incredibly on the nose or obvious, right? It's not something that a passive viewer would necessarily say about the show, that the show connects sexuality and violence in this damaging way. It also includes a so what that focuses on the impact to a particular demographic, and that particular demographic is teenagers. This thesis statement is solid. I wouldn't say it's an A+ thesis statement, but it's a solid thesis statement. We're going to be looking at several other thesis statements for TV essays as we continue along. Your research paper is a continuation of this, so pick a show that you find compelling. If you're picking one of your favorite shows, know that by the time we're done with this, you may have difficulty watching the show just for fun in the future, so that's something to keep in mind. You might also want to pick a show that everybody else loves, but that kind of rubs you the wrong way for some reason, but you're not sure why. Or a show that you think is really interesting, but you don't really know why you like it. That could be a great show to write about. A show that has to do with some sort of topical issue or something that's really important in our society right now, that could be really relevant too. I don't recommend any sort of reality show or news show. I recommend a fictional show. So I recommend a sitcom or a drama. I don't recommend a reality show, even though they're not real anyway. And I don't recommend a news program type of show, simply because the sample essays that we'll be dealing with and the strategies that we'll be using, a lot of these strategies are taking from analysis of short fiction, short stories, or novels. We're going to be using these same strategies, and we're not going to be talking much about strategies for analyzing reality TV or strategies for analyzing news programs. So I recommend picking a show with characters, a fictional show. That way you'll have many more templates and examples that will help you. I look forward to reading your essays and hearing from you about what show you're going to write about.